There is plenty of crazy out there. It's good to know that there are still some common sense judges here in our backyard in Kansas and Missouri. It's 6:05 as we kick it off Tuesday of Thanksgiving week. It's great to have you here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM and, of course, streaming all morning long on the KCMO Talk Radio app. So yesterday, this ruling came down from a judge here in Missouri, and here's what happened.
A Missouri judge has upheld a law that prohibits physicians from providing hormone treatment and puberty blockers to minors. 3 parents from St. Louis County sued, arguing it was medically necessary care for transgender youth. But a judge disagreeing, affirming the law today and keeping that ban in place.
Woo! There you go. Listen, protecting the kids is what it's all about. This is not about hating transgender people. This is not about taking away some adults' rights. This law that was signed back in 2023 is about protecting children. And a Missouri judge yesterday upheld the state's ban on surgeries, hormone treatments, puberty blockers for kids. Unless, of course, you are somebody who is already going through the process. If you are already receiving medications, you are basically grandfathered in to the Missouri law. It took place August of 2023, and it banned transgender surgeries on minors and imposed a 3-year moratorium on hormone therapy and puberty blockers unless the patients were already receiving the medications. This is an entirely reasonable, common sense law right here in Missouri. And thankfully, we didn't have some woke-a-doke judge who decided to overturn the ruling. Now, how did this get covered by local media? Oh, hysterically, embarrassingly, of course. I mean, just classic Kansas City Star yesterday, as they write here. A Missouri judge on Monday upheld the state's ban on gender-affirming care for minors, allowing the state to continue prohibiting treatments such as hormone therapy and puberty blockers for people under the age of 18. Circuit Court Judge Robert Craig Carter from Southern Douglas County wrote the ban was constitutional. The ruling rejects a lawsuit brought on behalf of families of trans youth, medical providers, and national LGBTQ advocacy organizations. Now, before we continue here with this, when I was looking at the headline for the Kansas City Star, I thought to myself, well, of course. Missouri ban on gender-affirming care for trans minors to continue after judge's ruling. When do we drop this phrase, gender-affirming care? Now, if you're an adult and you want to do this, no one's looking to stop you. I mean, you find me the credible political platform where people are saying ban this stuff, or a politician, pick and choose whoever you want, whether it's a governor, whether it's the president-elect. You're not hearing that from people. What you're hearing is protect children. Protect the kids. That's what this is all about. That's what this is intended to be about. Now, what's interesting is what the Kansas City Star writes here. The legislation, they say, also affects adults. And you're thinking, wait, I thought you just said it was about the kids, Pete. Oh, it is about the kids, okay? Do not listen to how the Kansas City Star frames this.
Nobody cares.
Don't do it. They're trying to trick you here. They say the legislation also affects adults, prohibiting Missouri Medicaid dollars from covering gender-affirming care, and bans prisons and jails from providing gender-affirming surgeries. So if you are looking for taxpayer dollars as an adult to cover your transgender surgery, your nip, nip, tuck, tuck, that's not happening. If you're an adult in Missouri, you can do that with your own money. No one will stop you. But the idea that you should have the taxpayer fund that for you? No, it's cosmetic. Okay? I mean, if I want to improve my hairline, that's cosmetic. No one's funding that except for me. If you want to get some Botox, all these things that are considered cosmetic. And I'm sorry, but chopping off your Jimmy's cosmetic. Okay? That's cosmetic. I don't care what someone tries to spin you with propaganda. That is cosmetic. And then when they say here they are banning prisons and jails from providing gender-affirming surgeries, yeah, once again, that's your taxpayer dollars in Missouri. Do you want to pay for prisoners who have committed heinous acts, hence why they're in prison, from deciding they're going to be a different gender? And you, the taxpayer, who's already funding their lifestyle every day, right? I mean, our tax dollars fund the prisons. That's how this works. Do you really want your tax dollars going to that for prisoners who already have broken the law?
Bad hombres.
No, of course not. This is common sense. And if there's one thing that we learned 3 weeks ago today, there is still a decent amount, maybe I wish there was more, but a decent amount of common sense in America today. There is. And for the Kansas City Star to frame it the way they framed it, they write here, the ban is part of a nationwide push to regulate the lives of transgender people. No one's looking to regulate transgender people's lives. No one's looking to regulate adults' lives. If they had just put a ban in for kids to stop watching pornography, which obviously does exist, you can't consume that content. I mean, I think it's gross no matter what, but you can't consume that content until you're of a certain age, depending on what state you're in. If that law was just put into place by Republicans, you would have the Kansas City Star writing, they're trying to regulate the lives of 13-year-olds. No, there are just certain things that are not appropriate for children. Pornography is one of them. Making decisions on whether or not to alter their body forever also falls under that same thing, that same umbrella. That's not offensive. That's not controversial. And then once you become an adult at 18, please have a blast. Do what you want to do. But the Kansas City Star's propaganda is not going to fly here on KCMO. And frankly, it doesn't fly in most of Kansas City. That's where their subscriptions keep tanking. And they're trying to shake people down. I saw my buddy Kevin Keatsman put on X last week that they wanted him to pay like $50 or $55 a month for the online edition of the Kansas City Star. That's crazy. There is no reason to pay that. Listen, all you have to do is listen to me, listen to us here on KCMO, and I'll bring you the bizarre nonsense from the Kansas City Star, and we'll do it for free. All you got to do is listen, support our sponsors, and, I mean, you wipe your hands clean, man. You don't have to pay $50 a month for that nonsense. That's ridiculous. After the ruling came down, writes the Kansas City Star, Celeste Michael, a 23-year-old transgender woman from Kansas City, said that she felt for transgender kids. Trans people, she said, are facing even more vitriol and more hatred. Stop turning yourself into a victim. Nobody hates you. You're 23. I don't care what you do. Live your best life. I won't judge you. I will call you whatever you want to be called. Genuinely. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. With all sincerity, I mean that. But stop putting yourself in the same situation as a 5-year-old or a 10-year-old where parents are committing child abuse. You are not the same. And you should not be treated the same way at 23 versus 10. We used to all agree on that. Kids are not adults and adults are not kids. But now we want to blur those lines and ask yourself why that might be. 6:14 on a Tuesday here on KCMO Talk Radio. I'm Pete Mundo. Thanks for joining us on 95.7 FM. I did 7 hours of radio yesterday. I did an afternoon show for WMAL in Washington, D.C. So if I lose my voice in the 8 or 9 o'clock hour, it is on John. It is on Mark to carry the load. Mark can break down the KU Duke game tonight, give you a good parlay on that one, and we'll be off to the races. And John will have his usual good one-liners throughout the morning on KCMO. But it's going to be on you guys. I think we'll make it, though. Coming up next, Trump threatening tariffs. This broke yesterday. He dropped a post on social media last night on tariffs coming our way. Is there a reason to be concerned? We'll talk about it next on 95.7 FM KCMO. Well, Donald Trump is coming through on those campaign promises, like it or not. Yesterday, he put up a post. It was last night, right about 6 p.m., give or take, that Trump posted on Truth Social. As everyone is aware, thousands of people are pouring through Mexico and Canada, bringing crime and drugs at levels never seen before. Right now, a caravan is coming from Mexico. We told you about that last week. Composed of thousands of people, seems to be unstoppable in its quest to come through our currently open border. On January 20th, as one of my many first executive orders, I will sign all necessary documents to charge Mexico and Canada a 25% tariff on all products coming into the United States and its ridiculous open borders. This tariff will remain in effect until such time as drugs, in particular fentanyl, and all illegal aliens stop this invasion of our country. Both Mexico and Canada have the absolute right and power to easily solve this long-simmering problem. We hereby demand that they use this power, and until such time that they do, it is time for them to pay a very big price. So that came down last night from Donald Trump. He's not messing around. Now, immediately what you heard was suddenly people on the left say, your prices are going up, your prices are going up. Inherently, I'm not really a tariff person. But I certainly am not going to sit here and listen to the people who told me that inflation was transitory. Eggs going up by $1 wasn't a big deal. Look at the stock market. The economy's great. Who tried to hoodwink everybody into trying to believe the economy was really just gangbusters the last few years. Now, all of a sudden, they're very concerned about how the little guy could be impacted by these tariffs, John Anthony.
Well, here's me thinking, yeah, the price is going up, but my cost doesn't have to go up.
Doesn't have to.
Does it?
No.
Maybe I don't need anything from China for a while.
Yeah. Well, this is now a situation that you look at and you say to yourself, when it comes to Mexico, they have failed colossally in helping us with our southern border. Their southern border is much smaller than ours. We all know that. Ours is a couple thousand miles. Theirs is not close to that. And they have allowed these caravans to come up from South America, Central America, through their southern border, through their country, and make their way to the United States. I believe this is a negotiating tactic from Donald Trump. That's what this is. Trump is basically telling Mexico in particular, get your bleeping act together, and maybe Trudeau as well up there on the north side. But mostly Mexico, get your act together. Stop allowing these drugs and these cartels and these caravans to pour across our southern border, because if you don't, you're going to have a major problem on your hands here. You do not want to be in a situation where you are now dealing with tariffs on behalf of the United States. I think deep down, Trump knows that the economy needs to get back on track. That is priority number one. But priority number two is the border. Like, they're 1 and 1A in many respects. It's not even 1 and 2. It's 1 and 1A. And while he's 60 days out from getting into office, a little less than that, I think he's basically sending a message as much as he can while he's not in office. And that is, stop the caravans, stop the nonsense, clean your southern border up, Mexico, and then we can have a nice, good relationship. That's what can come out of this. And I'm hopeful that that's what this ends up being. 913-408-7957. But my goodness, if you go on X, you watch any of the cable news last night, you would think that suddenly these people actually care about the working man and the working woman's bottom line. And trust me, that's not it. It's all just Trump derangement syndrome. And remember what we told you yesterday. The only real polling that I've seen done by CBS News shows that Donald Trump's approval rating on how he's handled the transition process thus far is nearing 60%. At 6:24, Mark's in Liberty. What's up, Mark?
Good morning. I laugh at the illogic of the argument that says the economy will collapse if tariffs are enacted or if the illegals are deported. you have to ask yourself, in 2016, did the economy collapse? No. Did it collapse in 2018? No. Did it collapse in 2020 other than taking a hard hit from COVID? No. It didn't collapse when we didn't have the extra 7 million people that we were subsidizing now. So it's not going to collapse now, and the dairy farmers are not going to go bust. It's a laughable argument.
Yeah. Nailed it, Mark. Have a great Thanksgiving, buddy. Spot on. You are absolutely right. Like, what did nobody pick crops, right, before Joe Biden let 10, 12 million people into the country? And that was the argument on CNN. Who's going to pick our crops? Who's going to mow my lawn? Get your own lawnmower, like the rest of us. How about that for a novel idea? But in the end, whether it is Donald Trump's deportation plans, which is part of what Mark was just referencing there, or these tariff plans, a lot of it feels right now like posturing because he's using the tools available in his toolbox to try to basically get the best deal that he can from Mexico. That's all. Trump, he's just a deal maker. He's not like this political ideologue who's like, I'm a conservative, so I must do it this way. He's like, I'm going to cut a deal. I'm going to piss them off a little bit. I'm going to try to strong arm them into doing what I want them to do through fear. That's negotiating. That's what he's doing here.
All critics' projections are just speculation.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, absolutely.
Right. Nothing's happening. To your point, it is a negotiating ploy.
Yeah. And I understand, it's our job to speculate on the decision-making and the announcements by any politician. But these people have no credibility left. They're done. They are absolutely done. They can't be taken seriously. They told you for 3 years that, inflation's coming down. Biden's doing great. And now Trump just says on his social media pages, hey, I'm going to slap tariffs on Mexico and Canada until you guys clean up the fentanyl crisis and the human, the human element crisis, of course, as well, the caravans, all these different things. And suddenly they're acting like the world's going to end. The American people clearly said that they trust Donald Trump and J.D. Vance over Kamala Harris and Tim Walz on the economy and on the border. And this is just one of many steps that will be taken to try to fix these serious problems. That's it. That's what this is all about. And maybe that's too much logic. It might be too much logic for some people. I get it. But for those of you, for those of us, it's just good old-fashioned common sense. Now, speaking of prices of things, I just wished Mark in Liberty a happy Thanksgiving. Hope he has a great one. Hope you do as well. If you're traveling today, Godspeed up at the airports. We are not traveling for the first time in 6 years, so I'm happy about that. But the cost of Thanksgiving is down. And some people are acting like, oh, man, this is awesome. Thank you, Joe. And speaking of Joe, he was pardoning turkeys yesterday. And amazingly, I guess Hunter Biden wasn't available. We'll get to it next on KCMO. Well, Joe Biden pardoned his final turkeys yesterday. Insert your own personal joke here, whether it's Hunter Biden's lack of availability, Biden's inability to pardon or unwillingness to pardon himself.
I thought Hunter was the turkey.
Maybe he's the one who's ultimately getting roasted. They didn't want to pardon him. Maybe that's what it really is, Mark. So yesterday, what you had was Joe Biden doing his turkey pardon. Of course, this has been going on for many decades at this point. It is a White House tradition where Joe Biden pardoned Peach and Blossom. Those were the turkeys that he elected to pardon. They were 41 and 40 pounds respectively. And they were out there, and they were looking pretty good yesterday. They were looking happy. Why? Because they were going back to Minnesota after getting pardoned by Joe Biden. The only thing that they had to do was listen to Joe Biden talk, which probably made them think, just kill me now. Forget the pardon. I don't need this. Just cut me at my throat, whatever it takes. I can't listen anymore to this guy.
Or don't send me back to Minnesota.
Yeah. I got to go back to Governor Walz and his happy hands, his happy fingers, and his leg kicks. And I got to go back to his wife. Oh, no, don't do it to me. Just leave me here. Let me die in peace. All right. So Biden pardons the turkeys and then tries to make jokes and just doesn't make any sense.
According to experts, Peach weighs 41 pounds.
All right, Peach.
And loves to eat hot dish and tater tots.
Peter Tot.
And cross-country skis. You know, dreams to see, but the real dream he has is to see the Northern Lights, I'm told.
You know, Joe Biden used to be able to deliver that line and actually be somewhat funny and clever about it. But now he's too busy stumbling all over himself. He just sounds like a crazy old man, right? Yeah, I heard that Peach wants to see the Northern Lights and loves cross-country skiing. It's like, okay, all right. I get what you're going for there, Joe. Maybe he can, get Peach to hop on one of the snowmobiles with our buddy Ray Stevens, cross over the state line up to Wisconsin. It doesn't even really make all that much sense. It's not that clever. I don't know if that was in Joe's teleprompter, in which case he needs new comedy writers. I don't know if somebody left Jimmy Kimmel's show, which hasn't been funny in years, and decided to write for the White House, but that wasn't that funny. Like, Trump's funnier off the cuff than Joe Biden is with the teleprompter. Unless that was Joe off script, I don't know. But he doesn't really go off script much these days. So I genuinely don't get it. But whatever. The two turkeys got their pardons. They're going back to Minnesota. They got to hang out with Governor Walz now. Have fun with that. They'd rather be dead. And PETA, they were very upset yesterday. PETA was protesting Biden's turkey pardon with their Hell on Wheels display. So PETA, I guess as I understand it, was walking around Washington, D.C. yesterday, and they had people making distressing animal cries. What do you think that sounded like? Ah! Wah! Brr! Like, I don't know. Do they want to borrow my toddlers for a day? What do they do when they're making distressing animal cries?
Congress.
Yeah. Oh, man. So PETA wrapped up a 30-day, 30-state tour that they've been on since last month, stopping at grocery stores, busy downtown areas, and eventually ending up yesterday at the presidential turkey pardon. And PETA was not happy about this. Okay, they said no one needs to eat meat, dairy, or eggs to be healthy. That is what their statement said. Well, I had 2 eggs this morning, so go pound sand, PETA. What are you going to do about it? I got more sitting in the fridge at work. Oh, I got a yogurt, too, at the office. Oh, and I got a little leftover chicken pot pie. Oh, gosh. Come after me, PETA. Come on. I got my bodyguards, John and Mark, here to take care of me. Everyone can help stop this needless suffering by simply going vegan today or enjoying a vegan roast at their Thanksgiving dinner on Thursday. I'd rather have an ending like Peaches was going to have than become a vegan. I'm just going to throw that out there. I'm not sure about you, but that's just me. So PETA sent a letter to Biden earlier this month begging him to cancel what they described as the wretched turkey pardon tradition. They say it's a humiliating meat industry stunt that uses the White House as its public relations backdrop. Well, good for Biden not listening, but I wish he stopped listening to the crazy people on the left 3 years ago. The country would be much better off. But I guess better late than never. Biden decided not to go down that road. The history of the presidential turkey pardon is a little murky. Share this with you here real quick. Some believing it first began when Abe Lincoln granted clemency to a turkey in 1863. Others have suggested the tradition began much later with President Harry Truman. How about that? Meanwhile, according to NPR, take it with a grain of salt, the turkey pardon tradition was formalized in 1989 by President George H.W. Bush. So believe what you want there, but that's the history and the backdrop of the turkey pardon. Now we've got the cost of Thanksgiving dinner. It's estimated to be at $58.08 for a 10-person gathering this year, which is down 5% since last year and is the lowest since 2021. Now, $58.08 to feed 10 people. What are you feeding them? Kraft mac and cheese? That seems awfully low to me, but I'll take this CNBC article at its word. So it's down 5% from last year, right? So people are looking at that and they're saying, okay, that's great. That's pretty good. Well, leave it to some of the talking heads. Bakari Sellers is a guy who you may see on CNN once in a while. Former state rep in South Carolina, has a couple of New York Times bestsellers, but he's most known for his time on CNN. So he shared this article, and he said, "But we told you all this," implying prices are down. You're doing fine. Stop complaining. Inflation's not that big a deal. And I hate to break it to you, my man, but that's not how this works. Okay, so prices are down maybe 5% on Thanksgiving dinner from last year, but I've got the numbers right in front of me. I will repost them on X right now. The cost of Thanksgiving this year compared to 2019. Pre-pandemic, pre-inflation. The cost of turkey is up 23%, stuffing's up 52%, ham's up 61%, rolls are up 66%, the pumpkin pie mix is up 25%, pie shells are up 35%, and green beans, although who likes those, are up 21%. So you can sit there and say, prices for Thanksgiving dinner are down 5%. Great. Across the board, they're mostly up 30 to 40% in the last 5 years. It's like if you were to gain 50 pounds over the last 5 years and then you lose 5 pounds over the last 5 months and you walk into the holidays and you see your family and you want them to talk about how great you look. No, you're still 45 pounds overweight from where you were 5 years ago. I'm not going to slap you on the back. I'm not going to do it. And I don't think most people at your Thanksgiving dinner are going to do that, John.
The cost of the holiday dinner is down. Oh, did we say turkey? We meant turkey franks.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
I mean, that's about the only way this works.
Yeah. Oh, man. It's just they can't help themselves, though. They are trying to find their narrative as if to say, you are too stupid to realize how good you've got it. See, this was the big issue with Joe Biden and then Kamala Harris during the campaign. They basically tried to tell you not to believe your lying eyes, not to believe your lying wallet, your lying pocketbook. You don't feel the right way. Listen to us. Your feelings are not warranted when it comes to the economy and the cost of goods and services. And the American people said, no, I'm going to believe what I feel, what I see every day, not what you tell me. I'm not going to do that. And whether it's Bakari Sellers or Kamala Harris, it doesn't much matter. They will not learn the lesson. And that is that you cannot tell the American people to feel a certain way when it's all based in lies. 913-408-7957. It's 6:44. We still will do our Tirade Tuesday coming up at 8:30 today. I know some of you are going to be hitting the road. Maybe some of you are out of town. You're already stuck at some family's house that you don't care for. But you can still stream us and step out on the back porch and call us for Tirade Tuesday at 8:30. I wouldn't want to screw around with this guy, Tom Homan. He is the new border czar for President-elect Donald Trump. He worked with Trump last time around. But this guy is taking no prisoners, man. He's a BAMF, as they call him. He is not screwing around. So Tom Homan is going to be in charge of the border. He's going to be in charge of handling deportations, which, as we told you yesterday, based on CBS News polling, is overwhelmingly popular with the American people, well above 55% of people who support Donald Trump's plans to handle deportations for those here illegally. So all the hysteria that's going to be, shown on MSNBC and CNN and ABC and NBC, it doesn't matter. The American people are supportive of it based on all the polling. Donald Trump won the election. This is going to happen. And hopefully it's going to start with the worst of the worst, those who are and have committed crimes, those who have criminal histories in their former countries, and you start there and you work your way on down. That's how this has to go. And this guy, Tom Homan, is not messing around. But what you've seen is mayors in some of these cities, and also you've seen this from some governors, most notably Gavin Newsom, saying, no, we are not going to comply with Tom Homan. Well, here's what he had to say last night to Sean Hannity, and he had a certain message for the Denver mayor in particular. Here it is.
You heard this mayor out there in Colorado. I want to get your reaction to it. And I want you to be clear about who has jurisdiction, the federal government or state and local governments. And if you're a sanctuary state or city, are you breaking the law?
You're absolutely breaking law. All you have to do is look at Arizona versus U.S. You'll see these breaking law. But look, me and the Denver mayor, we agree on one thing. He's willing to go to jail. I'm willing to put him in jail. Because there's a statute, it's Title 8 United States Code 1324 III, and what it says is, it's a felony if you knowingly harbor and conceal an illegal alien from immigration authorities. It's also a felony to impede a federal law enforcement officer. So if we don't want to help, that's fine. He can get the hell out of the way. But we're going to go do the job. President Trump has a mandate for American people. We got to secure this country. We got to save American lives. And I find it shocking that any mayor of a city would say, and President Trump's been clear, we want to concentrate on public safety threats and national security threats. I find it hard to believe that any mayor or governor would say they don't want public safety threats removed from their neighborhoods. I mean, I don't know what the hell is going on in Denver, but we're going to go and we're going to fix it. If he don't want to fix it, if he don't want to protect his communities, President Trump and ICE will.
How about Tom Homan? Let's go, baby. Oh, woo! Man. This guy is not messing around. First off, if you're breaking federal law, you've got a problem on your hands. Secondly, great question asked there at the very end. Why would you not want to take bad actors, those with criminal backgrounds, whether it's in the United States or in their former countries, why would you not want to remove those threats from your communities? Who are you standing up for? The working poor who are most likely to be impacted by these people because they're more likely to be in their neighborhoods than they are in the ritzy neighborhoods in town? What are you protecting? What are you doing? So this is fantastic by this guy, Tom Homan, who is a friend of the show. We've tried to get him on, but he's been slammed, as you can imagine. But he's been a guest on this show before, met Tom a couple of times when we did our shows in Washington, D.C. the last few years, and he's just an outstanding guy. There is nobody better suited to be the border czar than this guy, Tom Homan. But you have got governors like J.B. Pritzker on the other side of course, the state of Missouri and Illinois. You've got Gavin Newsom in California, who have promised to stand up to the incoming Trump administration. Pritzker warning that if someone attempts to come for my people, you come through me. That will be tough since he's 500 pounds, but what are you protecting, chump? If you're coming for my... Wait, the people who are here illegally are your people?
Yeah, I was curious about when he took possession of that.
Yeah, that sounds like, I don't know.
Dictator?
Yeah. Does sound like a dictator, John.
I'm feeling a threat to democracy.
I am too. Jeez. We'll have to do something about that. How about you protect your own people, J.B. Pritzker? How about Gavin Newsom? You protect the people who are tax-paying American citizens first. What about that for a novel concept from these governors and these mayors? Now, we are not going to talk to Quentin Lucas this week because we usually talk to him on Thursday. And, of course, Thursday happens to be Thanksgiving, so we won't be here on Thanksgiving. But I would be curious to know, and I'll try to get a hold of him for next week, where he stands on this issue. I don't get the sense that he's going to go fire and brimstone against Donald Trump on this. I don't think that's smart for him to do. That's not his brand in this case. And he also realizes that if he wants any future in this region's politics, going up against Trump when it comes to illegal immigrants is probably not his best play. Quentin Lucas is savvy enough. He's got to know that, right? But these other guys, I know they're in very deep blue parts of the country, but they're just, it just doesn't make sense politically. And it doesn't make sense if you truly care about protecting everyday people in your communities. Arizona Governor Katie Hobbs, also a Democrat, has said that she will work with the Trump administration to continue efforts on border security, but will not tolerate terrorizing communities or threatening Arizonans. What if there are Arizonans who are sick of being threatened by people here illegally? Is going after criminal illegal aliens, although some may argue that I'm repeating myself when I say that, how is that terrorizing communities? What if that's helping communities? It's like they didn't learn the lesson from 3 weeks ago. That's based on what I'm hearing. That's what it seems like to me. They are not learning the lesson from 3 weeks ago. But that's also, unfortunately, for too many of these folks, on brand. They never learn their lesson. If Gavin Newsom would have learned his lesson when 1 million people fled his state the last couple of years, well, he'd be a much different guy than he is today. J.B. Pritzker. I mean, these guys oversee two of the bluest states in the country that people are leaving in droves because of their bad tax policies and their super progressive policies that exist all over the state. And they're saying, I'm done with this stuff. And they're leaving left and right. California is the most beautiful state in the country, and people are fleeing that place. You've got to work hard. You've got to really stink at your job to get people to say, I'm leaving my home. I'm leaving the most gorgeous state in America because of the politics. But that's what's happening. Now, speaking of all these individuals, there is a new poll that came out this morning on 2028 Democratic presidential nominees. And this is gold, okay? We have got in the top spot for a second straight poll, Kamala Harris back in the mix at 37%. Please, please, please run her again. Please, please, please. Oh, do it.
She's a real beauty.
And then you've got undecided at 35%. Gavin Newsom at 7%. Sweet Pete Buttigieg, Transportation Secretary, built 7 EV stations with $8 billion at 4%. Gretchen Whitmer, governor of Michigan, at 3%. And then Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, at 3%. He's got no chance. He's a Jew. Democrats will not make him their nominee. We've unfortunately learned that the hard way since October 7th of last year. Shapiro would probably be their best bet, but the party will not make a Jewish guy their nominee, if there's anything we've learned from the last 14 months. But the fact that Kamala Harris is running 30 points ahead of anybody else, I know that she's fresh off being the nominee, but it goes to show you how weak the bench is. Undecided at 35. They're hoping for some unicorn to show up and save the day. They've been waxing poetic about Michelle Obama. It's clear that that is never going to happen. And then you've just got these bad governors and do-nothing cabinet secretaries like Pete Buttigieg, who was qualified to be transportation secretary because, well, he endorsed Joe Biden and he likes choo-choo trains. That's it. That's the guy's only qualifications, and he did a horrible job as the transportation secretary. Like I said, 7 EV charging stations with $8 billion that he was given. He saw and oversaw issue after issue with the FAA. I mean, you can go down the list. The guy took what felt like a 4-month paternity leave. I mean, even Mark was like, come on, that's too long of a paternity leave there, Mayor Pete. What are you doing? You're killing us here. I mean, it was incredible. The guy was nowhere to be found when there were key issues happening with transportation in this country. So I don't know where they go, but that brand, that party has got to rebuild itself from the ground up. Meantime, you look at the bench on the other side, whether it's J.D. Vance, Ron DeSantis, I mean, the list goes on of quality people on a very deep bench, and that is not what you're seeing right now on the left side of the aisle. And Kamala leading the way on this poll is just another example of that. 8:05 on a Tuesday morning. Welcome in. Happy Thanksgiving week. Thanks for being here on KCMO 95.7 FM. So President Trump last night put up a post that bothered a lot of people. And it was an announcement that he is ready on January 20th to slap a 25% tariff on all products coming into the United States from Mexico and Canada. And the tariff, he says, is going to remain in effect until such time as drugs, in particular fentanyl, and illegal aliens stop the invasion of our country. Both Mexico and Canada have the absolute right and power to easily solve the long-simmering problem. And he adds, we hereby demand that they use this power. And until such time that they do, it is time for them to pay a very big price. Now, I believe this is negotiating by Donald Trump. He's telling Mexico, get your act together. Fix your own southern border, which is a fraction of the size of the U.S. southern border. They could knock this thing out tomorrow. Stop allowing the fentanyl to pour into your country from China, and then, of course, flood across the southern border into the United States. And if you don't, you're going to have economic pain. I believe that's what Donald Trump was doing last night. But it sent many off the deep end, including this article in the Wall Street Journal by a guy named Alan Blinder. Alan Blinder was a professor of economics at Princeton, and he served as vice chair of the Federal Reserve during the Clinton administration from 94 to 96. And he writes here that among the many ironies in this recent election is that one of the main reasons why Donald Trump defeated Kamala Harris was high inflation. Yet almost every economist will tell you that Donald Trump's proposed policies are inflationary. He says 3 such policies received the most attention during the campaign: tariffs, tax cuts, and mass deportation of illegal immigrants. So he goes on to explain why Donald Trump's policies on tariffs, tax cuts, and mass deportation could lead to more inflation. Well, let's just start off with the fact that Donald Trump put tariffs on China, as he would call it when he was in office, and there really was no inflation. And actually, what ended up happening was a very good thing. China's share of U.S. imports by category has decreased significantly from 2017 to 2023. Example, in 2017, 86% of the toys in this country were made in China. Now they're at 76%. Still too high, but coming down. In 2017, 68% of semiconductors were made and imported from China. That number is now at 20%. Your smartphone. In 2017, 64% of smartphones were imported from China. That number is now 46%. We slapped tariffs on China. And I don't say this as a big tariff guy. I inherently don't like tariffs. But if they're used as negotiating tools, which I believe this is what this is largely about, then they can be effective. And in the case of China, lessening our reliance on China is great policy, and it's paid off in a big way. So first off, Trump did slap tariffs on China, and guess what? We didn't have inflation during his 4 years in office. The other thing that he alludes to here is tax cuts. Oh, yeah, tax cuts are going to lead to inflation. People having more of their own money is going to somehow inflate the economy. No, you know what tax cuts would do? Tax cuts would spur the economy, would allow business to reinvest in their businesses, would allow people to reinvest in themselves. The only group that would take a hit on tax cuts is potentially the government, but in the end, the government's been collecting more taxes than ever before since Donald Trump's tax cuts of 2017. So put that in your pipe and smoke it. That doesn't even make sense. The best thing to do to get inflation under control is to slash the government spending. That's what's caused the inflation. The government has been one of the top 2 job creators during most of Joe Biden's administration. They are spending that is causing the inflation. That's what's happening. And then, of course, deportation of illegal immigrants. Because what they'll allege is that if you deport illegals, you're going to take away all these jobs that Americans don't want to do. Who's going to pick the crops? Same argument Democrats made in the 1860s, I'll note. But if all these illegal immigrants were coming to the country to just do jobs Americans don't want to do, then why was inflation not under control the last few years? Why? If massive amounts of illegal immigration to the tune of 10, 12 million people was a good thing for the economy and would help keep inflation down, why didn't it do that the last 3 years? Like, okay, this guy was vice chair of the Federal Reserve. Good for him. He was an economics professor at Harvard. Good for him. I've got a little finance degree from Villanova. That's not going to stand up to Princeton, which I think is where his degree or where he taught at. Yeah, he taught at Princeton, professor of economics. I get it. That's worth more than my little finance real estate degree from Villanova. But I'm not stupid, and neither are you. And you don't need to be an economics professor at Harvard or Princeton. I keep mixing up those two to realize that when you compare the last 4 years to the prior 4 years and all the policies he's fear-mongering based off of in this Wall Street Journal piece, you can't possibly do things like deport people who are here illegally, cut taxes, and have tariffs and not have inflation. Well, I don't know. Joe Biden's model didn't work, so I'm pretty confident people are more than willing to give the other guy a shot who was in office the 4 years prior and didn't oversee 40-year highs on inflation. And this is part of the clip, part of the bit here I want to play from Howard Lutnick. He was on CNBC the other day. He is part of Donald Trump's transition team, and he was making the case on tariffs pretty effectively.
And of course it's a bargaining chip. We can't sell a Ford or GM in Europe. You go to Europe, you can't sell a Ford or GM. Why? There's 100% tariffs. How about in Japan? 100% tariffs. So do you think if we said, we're going to tariff you the way you tariff us, do you think they're going to allow Mercedes and all these Japanese companies and Porsches and BMWs to all of a sudden have 100% tariffs in America? Of course not. They're going to come and negotiate, and their tariffs are going to come down. And finally, Ford and General Motors are going to be able to sell in these places.
How's that sound, Andrew? That sounds...
Of course they're going to come down. Of course. This is just negotiating.
It absolutely makes sense. If you do it strategically, if it's across the board, it creates a real problem. And the question is whether you believe the president is going to do it strategically or across the board. He keeps saying it across the board.
That's from CNBC, Howard Lutnick, who's going to be Donald Trump's Commerce Secretary, CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald, one of the big financial firms, making that case on their morning show yesterday. And he's right about that. Go to Europe. You're not seeing a lot of Fords and GMs. And part of that might be cultural, but another part of that might also be the tariffs that exist. So why is it, whether it's who's funding NATO, whether it's who is using tariffs, why does it feel like we're the ones who keep getting screwed in these deals? Why are we the ones, and our companies the ones, who have to keep playing nice and playing by the rules? I don't think that Donald Trump is going to be the tariff king, but I do believe he will use them effectively in negotiations to try to get the deals that he wants. See, Trump's not an ideologue in that sense. He's not a guy that works at a think tank, right, who just like studies this stuff. A lot of it's done on feel, and a lot of it's just done on negotiating. That's it. That's the name of his game. And there are downsides to that at times. But in the case of like the announcement last night that he's going to tariff Mexico and Canada until they close off their border to drugs and fentanyl and illegals into the U.S., well, to me, that's as much an opening to a negotiation as it is anything else. And those people who are spending last night and this morning trying to freak you out about how your prices are going up are the same ones who insisted to you the economy's been great the last 4 years. And if you don't realize how great it's been, well, you're not paying attention and you don't know what's really going on. The same people who told you Joe Biden's economy was awesome are the same ones who are now freaking out over a Trump post on social media when he's not even in the White House and he's 55 days from being in the White House. So I'm sorry if I'm not going to buy into your faux outrage on a Tuesday morning here on KCMO. You're not going to believe this, but I just shared this from Eric Doherty. He is the assistant news director at Florida Voice News, and he just posted in the last few minutes on X that the Mexican president just announced on a live stream that she would be stopping the caravan at the southern border. I kid you not. Just breaking here. And this comes 12 hours, of course, after Donald Trump said he's going to hit him with a 25% tariff. Claudia Sheinbaum also saying, and this is being reported by Reuters here in the last few minutes, 5 minutes ago. This story was written by Reuters. So right as we went to the commercial break, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum said on Tuesday she would send a letter to Donald Trump urging dialogue and cooperation following his pledge of across-the-board tariffs of 25% on Mexico and Canada. Saying here, to one tariff will come another and so on until we put our common businesses at risk. Sheinbaum added that she would send the letter later today. And this comes, of course, 12 hours after Donald Trump made the pledge to hit Mexico with 25% tariffs until they halt the arrival of illegal drugs and undocumented illegal immigrants coming across the southern border. Well, that didn't take very long now, did it? Isn't that the point? Bring the people in power to the negotiating table. This is not about some economic think tank's vision of what is perfect economic policy. These are real people that you're trying to get to do something. In the case of Trump, you're trying to get Mexico to stop caravans and to close its southern border and to get the drug cartels under control so they stop bringing people and drugs across our southern border. It's all about negotiating. It's all about just applying business principles to government. That's it. And too many in government don't have any common sense business principles. So I know this is a foreign concept to so many, but man, it sure is refreshing, is it not? Especially compared to the brain dead nonsense of the last 4 years. Come on, man. It's just not even close. Meantime, I saw this on X this morning, and it came from a governor of one of our bordering states, and that's J.B. Pritzker in Illinois. And he wrote on X, he says here, if you're seeking a state that will protect your reproductive rights, come to Illinois. If you're seeking a state that will fight for workers' rights, come to Illinois. If you're seeking a state that values you for who you are, come to Illinois. If you're a criminal, go to Illinois. No, I added that line. But what's fascinating is the data would suggest that nobody's buying that pitch. I just looked up the numbers because I was curious. Illinois has lost 84,000 residents in the last year who have moved to other states. That makes Illinois one of the highest rates of departure in the entire United States. And it makes it 10 straight years of population decline in the state of Illinois, in the country. And it ranks near the bottom on multiple other population measures as well. People are fleeing. They're leaving not just for like the sunny shores of Florida. They're also just jumping across the state line to Indiana, which is a safer, more tax-friendly state. So they are just bailing left and right on that state. And these pitches from these blue governors, they're just failing. They're failing their own people, and their own people aren't buying it. Illinois, losing people. California, losing people. New York, losing people. They're all losing people left and right, and they can't understand what is going on and the why behind it. Meantime, at the White House yesterday, you had Joe Biden pardoning turkeys ahead of Thanksgiving. So Joe Biden pardoned a couple of turkeys yesterday, and here's what it sounded like as he sent them back to Minnesota so they can, in the words of Joe Biden, do some cross-country skiing or something.
According to experts, Peach weighs 41 pounds and loves to eat hot dish and tater tots and cross-country skis. You know, dreams to see, but the real dream he has is to see the Northern Lights, I'm told.
He's dying to see the Northern Lights, old Peaches. He just can't. He's got to see those Northern Lights, man. I mean, it's on his bucket list, and now Peaches, instead of getting his neck slaughtered, is going to go back to Minnesota, although he's got to deal with Governor Walz over there, so I'm not sure how much of a victory that really is, having to live under Governor Walz's reign. But he's going back to Minnesota. He's going to cross-country ski, and he's going to see the Northern Lights. So God bless you there, Peaches. I hope you have a great time. I hope you enjoy yourself back in Minnesota with Governor Walz and his happy fingers and his Rockette-style leg kicks and everything else that guy is bringing back to that state. Oh, poor residents.
Sure, heading to the Mall of Americas, don't you know?
Oh, man, it is so good. And even when he's trying to deliver that quick line and he's trying to turn that phrase, it just, oh man, it's just not hitting. But it is good to see he's alive and well because no one's really heard from this guy in quite some time. I mean, it's been a hot minute. And yesterday you got the turkey pardon from Joe Biden and not much else. Once again, I guess Hunter was unavailable for that turkey pardon, but congratulations. I'm a big fan of Peaches, by the way. I saw her yesterday out there at the, I guess it's a she. I don't want to assume anyone's gender these days. But I thought that Peaches was looking pretty plump. If I was in Minnesota, I think Peaches would look pretty good on the Thanksgiving table this year, John.
Experts, I got her tipping the scales at what, 40 pounds?
Yeah,
41?
41.
Somewhere in there.
That's a big old bird there.
That's going to feed a family.
Oh, that's going to take care of some folks.
Just don't ask Tim Walz to hunt it.
Yeah, he
wouldn't be able to hit it.
He wouldn't hit the broadside of a barn, that guy. That's a great point there, Mark. Remember when he went bird hunting and his rifle got locked up? I mean, that was pretty unimpressive. Macho Man Tim Walz, put him in a camo hat, and dudes are going to be flocking to that Harris Walz ticket. It was always, I mean, it's whoever writes the first book, like the real tell-all behind the campaign, the real tell-all behind how we got Tim Walz as the VP pick. I'm telling you right now, I'm going to read that book. I'm going to be first in line for that book. I will not miss out. And I will get it just to find the chapter on selecting Tiananmen Tim Walz, who clearly no one had really vetted in any kind of meaningful way, because there's no way you'd be like looking at this guy's demeanor and think he's some kind of a macho man, right? There's no way you'd look at this guy and think that he's somebody who's really going to connect with your run-of-the-mill working-class dude. So what do? They realize it's not working, and they put him in a camo hat, and they have him play Madden against AOC. And then he puts up a post on X, one of the all-time great posts on social media, where he goes, AOC ran a mean pick six. This guy was supposed to be a high school football coach, and he's talking about running a pick six. Bro, you can't run a pick six. There's no such thing as running a pick six. But don't tell Tim Walz that, apparently. Oh, my gosh. Oh, I am. Listen, there's a lot of things I'm going to miss about this election season. There's a lot of things I'm thankful for this election season. But I will tell you what. Tim Walz is a story that may just keep on giving. Because now I'm going to be fascinated by whatever he does or does not do in Minnesota. And I didn't even know who the guy was before he was picked to be the VP. So if nothing else, we'll hopefully get some more Tim Walz stories in 2025. Because I'm here for those, man. I really am. Whether it's him going out hunting, wearing a camo hat, or playing Madden, sign me up for more Tim Walz. Tirade Tuesday, 913-408-7957. The phones are open for Tirade Tuesday. Get them in. Let's make it a good one before the holidays. 913-408-7957.